Greetings, Helldivers. Ervin here to go over the new patch and associated new leaks in Helldivers 2. With a new Tuesday has come a new patch, and while it might not look particularly interesting at first glance, I can promise this patch has changed more than meets the eye, while also promising some very interesting changes for the future. On top of that, this patch was also used to sneak in some new spicy content that we'll also be going over, so let's get right into it. First, we're going to briefly be going over the patch notes while trimming the fat and wordiness from some of the pages. The shield generator relay had its lifespan increased by 33%, raising from 30 to 40 seconds. One of my biggest annoyances with this stratagem was slash is the duration it lasts, even if it stays active and relatively healthy. Fading after just 30 seconds, regardless of its health, just never felt good to me. 40 seconds, I can't imagine will feel worlds different, of course, but this stratagem has its niches and it's got a well deserved buff here. Next, the SG8P Punisher Plasma has been reverted, regaining the arc it had previously in its firing. We do have to hope, however, that it will retain the stealth buff portion of its changes, which removed the Punisher Plasma's proximity detonation. Previously to that change, the plasma purifier projectile damage was essentially nullified due to its detonation happening before reaching any targets, only dealing the explosive AoE damage. Last patch, however, this was fixed, allowing its full damage to be dealt at the expense of that arc. Now that they have called this a full revert and stated this will affect its fire rate, recoil, and quote, projectile behavior, this seems to imply it may have once again lost its projectile damage, receiving a 2 round boost to its battery capacity in compensation. Regardless, the Plasma Shoddy is back to RPing as a Halo Wraith, raining death from afar and behind cover upon our enemies, so I imagine those that enjoyed this weapon previously will once again be filled with joy due to this change. Now, normally I glance over the fixes, but we do have a couple high priority issues that have been solved here, such as the Hivebreaker drill no longer becoming inaccessible when called in, making these missions once again consistently completable. Personally, I know a lot of Helldivers, myself included, who are avoiding this mission due to this common bug, so I'm glad that that's all been sorted out. In a similar fashion, terminals randomly becoming inaccessible has allegedly been resolved. While it was rarer than the Hive drill becoming inoperable, it did still happen often enough to potentially ruin your night. So, yeah, glad that's fixed too. Maybe. Please be fixed. Please. Arrowhead has also allegedly fixed the notorious bug where you would get stuck and unable to move while emoting. Once again, making it safe ish to hug your homies in the middle of an active war zone without fear of being frozen in place. The bug where corpses would cause proximity detonating projectiles, such as the airburst rocket launcher, and flak rounds for the autocannon, has been resolved. The airburst, in particular, received some very generous stealth buffs last patch, and this major issue was one of the only things holding it back from finally finding a usage rate above just 1%. So, this is great news for the one airburst rocket enjoyer watching this video. Hey, how are you doing, Steven? Now, y'all remember that short you saw a month ago promising this revolutionary method of carrying artillery shells where you could run with them, only to later reveal in the video it soft lock your Helldiver, making the game unplayable, and then you realize you were just farmed for views? Well, they fixed that bug. The last 5 scythe scope can now be zoomed in as intended, allowing it to be more functional as a mid to long range laser head popper, which was a pretty solid fix. The annoying bug with the commando rocket launchers, in particular, where you'd not toss the launcher to the floor on empty, has finally been squashed. So we love that. And these few have been some decent little fixes, of course, but this next one is pretty massive, especially for those of us regularly adding to our friends list. The friends list should, in theory, now, according to the patch, load correctly and allow you to add friends properly without nearly as much headache as before, as I am extremely happy about that as someone who regularly does viewer games on stream. Now, next we have one teensy tiny little nerf or a fix, depending on how you look at it, and a major improvement. The ragdolling when diving onto uneven surfaces has been relaxed, something that was incredibly obnoxious and spelt disaster moments after it occurred for every Helldiver in the game at least once by now, so that is a huge W. The minor L we've taken is you can no longer emote while airborne. This is a minor nerf because previously using an emote before impacting the ground would often decrease the fall damage you took on average or outright nullify it when timed right before hitting the ground, server ticks willing. Not a huge loss in exchange for how big a deal this whole less tripping over pebbles change is, so I'll take it. All right, now it's time to get in the strangely most interesting part of the notes with the known issues, which has seen quite a few important changes both this patch and last. The patch states how they understand how ragdolling can cause feelings of helplessness and frustration. So there are several major fixes currently in the works to resolve this coming soon. First, they are going to make it so you can remain prone instead of immediately standing, which was a change I personally requested in my feedback video on the first 60-day patch, which should go a long way to preserving player agency alongside the other plan changes to enable stimming while ragdolled, as well as plans to give the Rocket Strider less pushing force on its missiles and a more telegraphed launch, rather than pre-firing you around corners like they're playing Rainbow Six Siege. All of this is sure to go a long way to appeasing the community, especially those who enjoy heavier armors, who have likely felt as though the automaton engagements were about as much fun as being thrown into a bounce castle full of bricks. So we have a lot of big W's in our near future as far as the known issues, but there is one L depending on who you ask there as well. The plasma purifier has caught the eye of Arrowhead, and they have noticed it's currently operating with the fire rate of a M134 minigun when fired on semi-automatic. Currently, this has created a dynamic where the plasma purifier is basically the guy she tells the plasma scorcher not to worry about. So it's good they are planning to resolve this sooner rather than later before the players get too accustomed to the ridiculous 6,000 RPM fire rate potential, usurping any desire for any actually automatic weapons. All right, we've now made it to the juiciest part of this new patch, and that is the leaks. First off, I've got the stats for all the new firearms dropping with the Truth Enforcers Warbond on Thursday. The SMG 32 Reprimand has more damage than I predicted and slightly less ammo than my extremely high tech software would have suggested, sporting 125 damage per bullet and 25 rounds per magazine, as well as a hefty 44 recoil and a relatively low 490 RPM. Most importantly, this is in fact a two-handed SMG as we thought it might be, meaning you will not be able to run and fire it without a heavier movement speed penalty, nor hold it with a ballistic shield or package equipped. This essentially just makes it an assault rifle with higher damage fall off and more spread, although at 125 damage per bullet, this is quite the punch it's packing. Problematically, though, the ergonomics of this weapon are extremely poor, similar to that of the Jar 5, suggesting you may be taxed the utilization of the Peak Physique passive to have a comfortable operating experience. Essentially, the Reprimand has turned out to be a slightly slower, punchier adjudicator with worse ergonomics and less magazine capacity. Not exactly the head turner I thought it would be, but I'll have to play test it myself and make sure. The SG-20 Halt has about the stats I expected, sporting more damage than the Slugger, but slightly less than the Punisher, although more than I actually did expect, considering its medium penetrating flechette rounds deal 385 total damage within a single shell. It also has programmable ammo, kind of. It's loaded with 16 shells total, however, 8 of these are stun shells, and 8 of these are flechette. You toggle between which you're using and or loading by holding down reload and right clicking, meaning they basically are housed within separate tubes, similar to how the Punisher and Slugger should likely be one gun that functions the same way in my opinion. Like the others, however, it does have the stock standard 80 rounds per minute fire rate. When swapping to those light penetrating stun rounds, however, you are going to need to aim for the squishy bits to get the desired stunning effect due to that low penetration value. That all being said, the halt is definitely set up to be an extremely powerful crowd pleaser during high difficulty tournament missions where armored bugs are commonplace and charger butts desire to be stunned. The Plas 15 Loyalist deals 75 ballistic damage and 50 explosive damage as expected, but with only 7 rounds per battery, making the fact that it at least for now has the same 6,000 RPM like the Purifier a lot less viable to utilize than its larger variant. The weapon is also medium penetrating, same as the Purifier, and charges up in the same way, dealing a maximum of 150 projectile damage and 200 explosive damage, dealing 350 in total. When used for its charge functionality, although these plasma weapons now lose damage extremely quickly due to fall off from their high drag values, this weapon is primed to be a contender when it comes to the community's fan favorite, the Senator. Now, these next new leaks are related to the DSS, which is set to become operational within the next couple weeks. Some new stratagem icons indicate we will indeed be getting access to the carpet bomb and 10,000 kg bomb as expected. With a third stratagem icon, I can't quite correlate to anything in particular, likely due to me recording this at 6 a.m. with no sleep. If you know what this stratagem icon is, feel free to let us know in the comments below, please and thanks. What I find the most interesting, though, is this icon, which seems to indicate you will not only have a platoon stratagem, but a platoon booster as well, inferred from the fact that this icon shares a shape with our boosters. This could potentially be a very exciting new addition, potentially breaking up the very stagnant booster meta of always taking Hellpod space optimization and vitality booster on every operation, should we be able to instead place these as our platoon wide boosters. Last up, we have one of the new Superstore armors I teased the silhouette of in my Warbond breakdown video earlier this week. It's the UF-84 Doubt Killer medium suit. This armor has an aesthetic I know has appealed to many Helldivers ever since it first leaked. So wait no longer, the Doubt Killer will be arriving to the Superstore on Thursday. There is still another yet to be mined armor suit, likely the heavy variant as well, dropping on Thursday. So if an unflinching heavy suit sounds interesting to you, make sure you've been saving up on those super credits because it is going to be expensive. Pause. Hey, editing Erevan here with a bit of an addendum to my last section on the armor related to the passive. Been getting reports today that this passive seems to currently not function, as it's unable to prevent stims being canceled through even light automaton projectiles. So I advise you to first try out the passive, see if it's working before investing your credits into the superstore armors, unless the drip is just too moist for you to resist, regardless of the passive's current functionality. Should this passive indeed be broke, however, expect it to be fixed soon after, similar to how they fixed the Peak Physique passive after its release. Next up, we have a new image of the Super Destroyer rocking some akimbo cannons, indicating new ship modules are in the works, promising to soon once again give us something to spend our treasure trove of samples on, as well as a new damage overlay effect that likely correlates with the radiation variants of weaponry we've been seeing laying around the playable field, indicating radiation rounds may be getting closer at hand. That will, however, just about do it for all the new information given to us by this latest patch. So, have yourselves a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.